on to the good stuff. I felt very fortunate to attend the state conference last weekend for Queensland beekeepers, and that was supported by the committee, so I thank the committee for letting me head on down there as our rep. I went to the QBA with the goal of understanding the situation further and finding a plan that might best work for our team and for our community about the Varroa situation. And I know that most of us only have a couple of hives in our backyards, and I think it's really important that we start to formulate a plan for managing Varroa Mite. At the conference, we saw commercial beekeepers with a massive amounts of hives, right down to people that only got 1 or 2 hives. So it was information taking in for me and then trying to filter it out, and then further conversations to come up with some ideas. So by and large, this was the focus of the conference. Then it looks like the video program is wrapping up, so that's Tonya's position in our community, so she's a Varroa Development Officer. It looks like they're wrapping that up a little bit, and they didn't make any huge announcements, but the talk I'd heard around was that they were cutting down to maybe 1 Varroa Development Officer for the entire state of Queensland. So that's a lot of ground to cover. So in preparing for that, we still have Tonya as a member of our club, and I feel very fortunate that she's here. But she's also, Lynn's been working with Tonya about creating some Varroa mentors in our club. So they're going to be doing a workshop with Tonya to help upskill some senior members of our team to help the whole community. So while we won't have any official Varroa Development Officers, I don't believe, I think we will have sort of people in our team that we can call on, which I think is pretty awesome. A pretty good middle ground, I guess. They went through the current state of play, and they had 72, this is as of last weekend, 72 confirmed detections across Lockyer Valley, Somerset, Brisbane, Gold Coast, Quilpie, North Burnett, Moreton Bay and Sunny Coast and Ipswich council areas. They expected the number of detections to increase as the beekeeper increased testing. They felt it was vitally important for beekeepers to get used to monitoring their hives more frequently. So I think we were, while it hadn't hit our area, we were pretty comfortable with testing when we thought, let's test this time. We now that it's here, we have to test every time we go into our hives every month. And we're looking to see how many mites. I guess the part that I had to get my head around was that we can't actually get rid of them. We're not going to ever have no hives in mites in our hive, but we are going to be aiming to keep that number as low as we can. So once I started getting my head around this magical idea that I thought I would just have none in my hive, I had to start thinking of it more like small hive beetle. It's there, and it's something that I have to work out how I can manage. I'm going off the Varroa track. I'll come back to Varroa, I promise. We also had 2 presentations. Oh, sorry. This was the map as of last weekend. I've got a more up-to-date one to show you. They spoke about the challenges they were seeing, and it was weather dependent. Without a winter brood break, which I will talk a bit about as well, Varroa mite populations are continually increasing, and that was what they sort of covered there. I included this slide. I took photos of their slides because there's our club there. So they had that up there because of one of Tonya's presentations here as well. And I've covered that. Okay. We also had 2 presentations from Dr. Cooper Shooten from the Southern Cross University. One was on another mite that might knock on our door sometime in the future, called the Tropilelaps. And they're a tiny mite that is currently as close as New Guinea, just a few k's off the tip of Queensland, but let's not worry about that right now. The other one that he looked at, this is the Tropilelap next to the Varroa mite, so they're really tiny. So he's all over it, and we'll get some more information when that comes about. And I thought this was a really cute picture of a small hive beetle. I know we don't think they're cute, but compared to Varroa mites, they kind of look cute now. So that was a small hive beetle. We spoke about the life cycle of the small hive beetle, and I kind of thought that's something we don't talk about too much. But they have to leave their hive so they hatch in the hive, and then they have to leave the hive to pupate in the ground and then come back to the hive. And I thought these slides that he put up were kind of interesting in seeing the cycle of the small hive beetle as well. because these things can also weaken our hive, and when we're looking at Varroa Mite, we're looking to try and strengthen our hive. So putting a lot of things in place to make our hives as strong as we can, so understanding that was sort of an important one as well. Dr. Thong Tran, get it round the right way, from the University of Sunshine Coast spoke about, he's been here before, he spoke about propolis and Australian propolis, what it's made of and why it's so important, and how little we know about the Australian propolis. And it is a crazy market that we really should, if anyone's looking for a startup business, I'm thinking this is where it is. Commercially, we import 60 to 80 tonnes a year of propolis, and we have our own very unique type in Australia. It's a $187 billion, it's a billions of dollars industry in the pharmaceutical world. The Australian propolis market is 40 million, so if you want to be a millionaire, maybe think about propolis. And there was lots of things that I didn't understand, like this, but I nodded and went, yep. Chemistry, I did not do that. Okay, so he spoke about all the different types of propolis, all the different properties that they have, and then how the Australian one has a unique property to it. So he was trying to look into that. One of my favourite ones was about, one of my favourite non-Varroa focused presentations was about the Australian Manuka. I didn't know that the older Manuka honey got, the higher their MGO rating went. And I had heard that our Manuka had a higher MGO rating than New Zealand Manuka, but I didn't know by how much. They showed us how they tested, which they only tested on the Sunshine Coast, which is great. New Zealand Manuka could go up to 729 milligrams per kilogram, but Australian is 2031, and the Australian plant that produces the highest is the Polygallifolium. Good job, Kate. So I thought that was really interesting because we always hear about New Zealand Manuka, but Australian Manuka is actually 3 times better when it's the right plant.
So what plant is that one, Kate?
It's the Leptospermum, but these are all the different types of Leptospermum, so the Polygallifolium is the best one.
You can get it from land care nurseries.
I think it's a pretty common one. Okay, and then the health benefits of it. See, isn't the small hive bean look cute now compared to the Varroa? That looks like an evil one from Star Wars or something. Okay, so on to Varroa. So I wanted to have a look at the state of play where it is really, and what we've been told, and how much did we hear from what we've been told, and what do we actually do now, what is being done around Australia and what works for us. So this was the map as of last night. So you can see that Mullaney is all shaded as well. I heard anecdotally at the conference that while this is showing what people have tested and reported, there are lots of people who are testing, finding and not reporting, particularly commercial beekeepers who don't want to, I guess, scare, they're just treating themselves. So I believe that this is mostly people like us who are trying to do the right thing, but it's as far as Mullaney at the moment, so it's probably closer to our
So is the blue...
So blue indicates how many have tested and are okay, and the yellowy orange is between 1 to 10 mites or 10 to 100 mites, depending on how many that they sort of see there. Yeah.
There was a Facebook post yesterday from Hinterland Bees.
Yeah.
He's found some at Bald Knob, which is near Mullaney.
Yeah. I'm wondering if that's what the Mullaney one was of last night there.
Yeah.
So it's here. Okay. I already did that one. So we can't avoid it, we have to learn to live with it and manage it, and we can do that. So that's what they kept saying at the conference, that for the last couple of years they've found a way to manage it through New South Wales, and the rest of the world's been dealing with it for a lot longer. There's bees still around the world. We're going to take a hit, especially in the first 18 months, and when we find our way of treating it, then we're all going to work better with it. We need to know our thresholds. We need to know the recommended threshold and have a plan once you hit the recommended threshold. So by that I mean that we need to be testing. We're looking to see how many mites are in our hives each time we test them. In our testing kit, that we're shaking out, we're putting 300 bees, around 300 bees, doesn't matter if it's a little more or a little less. And then when we do our alcohol wash of that, if we find 5 or more mites, it's time to treat. So they're saying 1 to 2 mites per 100. So at the moment, what I've seen in looking online and conversations I've had, they're saying if you find 5, you've got to treat. There are some places in New South Wales that we're finding a lot more than 5. So we don't want it to get to a lot more than 5. When we find 5, we've got to treat. If you have under 10 hives, all of them should be checked. If you have over 10 hives, you're checking percentages of that. We also need to have an integrated pest management program that we should follow. We're going to talk a little bit about what that might look like. And the way I'm seeing it, once I started to understand a little bit more, we're just putting some new steps in place every time we're checking our hive. We're just trying to put new things in place to minimise the number of mites that we have. In the same way that we did with small hive beetle, this is just a little bit more scary because there's bigger complications. And then they're also recommending that we rotate treatments, repeat monitoring, rotating the treatments is the key to effective chemical treatment. Okay. So we know that the alcohol and soapy washes seem to be more accurate and reliable. The sugar shakes have been less accurate for a few possible reasons, and that's to do with our climate. And they're not well tested. They also think that that it's just as harmful. So while we're trying to, I would personally rather be in a container full of sugar than I would drowning in alcohol. We put ourselves in that bee position. Would sugar be better for them? It doesn't. It still ends up damaging them. So we have to consider that we're sacrificing some to try and save the lot. Another step including is drone uncapping. They tend to, the mites are tending to be drawn into the drone capping, so they attack onto the little drone bodies. So a lot of people are checking uncapping drones and seeing if they're on the drone mites. I will show you another step about IPM as well. And then mite reinfestation. So anecdotally, what seems to be happening is, so the reason we're going to have a problem for 18 months is because they think that's how long it will take for the feral bees to die out. Because what's going to happen is no one's monitoring the feral bee hives. So they will be overtaken by mites. And when they are, those mite bombs will attack the monitored hives, and then when we get them under control, we'll have a better state of play. So my understanding is that for 18 months, while that is uncertain, we don't really know what the pattern will look like in our own hives. We just have to keep responding to it. And around the world, there seems to be about a 20% loss in hives, sometimes a little more. Lockwood Bees, who were the big commercial group that was speaking, they had started with 12,500 hives and they dropped to 10, and then they've been building back up. So they lost about 20% of their hives as well. They noted that there was a correlation between small hive beetle attacking a hive. So I guess when a hive is looking weak, everything can attack it. So a strong hive is what we're always trying to have. And well-fed bees seem to be faring quite well. So there was a presentation on feeding bees as well. The message was that New South Wales has successfully found ways to manage it, so we can too. What is ineffective is the essential oils, the powdered sugar, and rhubarb leaves, which is what we hear a lot of. But I think there's this dream that we could do things quite naturally, but it is really impossible to have it both ways. So they are successfully managing Varroa and keeping ahead of the game by using synthetic and non-synthetic treatments and rotating between. They're looking at where the Varroa wave is moving, so they're keeping in communication with one another. They're looking at potential brood breaks, which we can't really have here, so they can do that in winter when the queen lays less, but we don't really, I say this as I'm wrapped up in this jacket, we don't really have a real winter like they do, where the queen actually stops laying. So it's not as effective. So, we always talk about when we're researching something, we have to consider our unique climate. Even compared to New South Wales, things that work there aren't going to work here. So taking what they have as a concept and an idea, but then applying what we actually have. Our reality is that we don't actually have the same kind of temperature. Regularly monitoring and, So they had a panel of industry professionals and commercial beekeepers, and they spoke about what does and doesn't work. One message that I really liked was, if you're not checking, you're guessing, and they did keep pushing that idea of we have to keep checking and you have to know what's happening in your hive. So this is what Goldfield, which is the Lockwood group, they're doing these 3 treatment plans. Apivar and Baverol, I'll speak about them, and they were talking about they're having excellent results with that, rotating as well. So in spring they're using Baverol, in summer they're using oxalic acid strips, and then in autumn they're using Apivar. I had a look at this, and Grant and I had a bit of a chat about it. I've spoken to John. We don't all agree on everything, and remember on your very first day of beekeeping they said you'll meet 12 beekeepers and get 13 opinions. It's the same with this. So I'm just presenting to you some stuff that I've learned and some stuff we're going to trial. So please research for yourself as well. This is what ARBIC had produced as the treatment plans. You'll note that on the end there is the oxalic acid treatment plan, and it says registration application is progressing. So that's been like that for a while, but I will tell you that the industry commercial guys are all using it, and they did say at the conference it will get approved. So we are looking at that as one of our options. That is our natural strip of treatment. The one that is the synthetic one that we're looking at is the Baverol here. The reason that we spoke about using both of those in our hives to trial is because we don't have to do anything that the commercial guys are doing, like removing our supers. So some of them have to treat without their supers on, and have to treat for a certain period before they put their supers back on. So there's a whole lot of things that are unrealistic for people like us who have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 hives. We don't have different areas we can move our hives to, so these 2 seem to be the most useful for our rotation to trial. So oxalic acid and glycerin is the first one, and I'll talk a bit about it. The synthetic is the Baverol, and rotating. Baverol will treat bees in capped brood and out of capped brood. Oxalic acid doesn't treat them while they're in the capped brood, so you have to consider that cycle. Okay. Oxalic acid, it's natural. The way that they are creating it is, this is a gentleman from the US who came on and spoke about what they're doing over there. It's strips of cardboard, they're really thick cardboard. They heat up the oxalic acid and the glycerin to under 60 degrees, because once it hits 60 it creates a gas and becomes unsafe. Then they soak the cardboard in it, the cardboard doubles inside, and then they hook it over the brood frames. There are positives and negatives to everything that we're looking at. So they kept saying that your bees will take a hit with this one, and I asked them what that meant. And they said that your older bees are likely to die off quicker, and if you have a weak queen, she could die as well. So it's one of the risks that you have to look at and know your hive and keep a check of that. So what we did was, Grant is trialling it in his hives right now. He's mixed up the glycerin and the oxalic acid. We've bought the cardboard and he's got it in his hives. We've bought some as a club to trial in ours. These are the strips. They have doubled in size, filled with, and they have to weigh a certain amount so you know you've got the right amount in there. Those sealed will last for up to 2 years. So our plan, if it works, our plan is to produce these as a club and then split them off into 4 per pack and sell them to you for about $2.50, I think they work out. It's affordable if it's something you choose to look at in your hive as an option. I just wanted you to know that that's one thing we're doing, that we're trialing. The other step that I mentioned back here was, and an integrated pest management plan. I just took a photo of this out of a booklet that John had. And we're going to go through what this framework actually will look like. I'm talking about the chemical level. Yeah.
Do those strips,
Yeah.
trying to get back to the strips,
Yeah.
do they go in vertically or lie on the top?
No, you fold them over and put them over the frame. So it's just a piece of cardboard, so you can fold it over and pop it over the brood frames, every second brood frame. But they can be harsh on your bees, so that is something to consider. And again, not yet officially approved, but it's out there and they are selling kits for you to make them. So I believe it will happen. It hasn't yet though. So we're looking at, we will, I think, instead of overwhelming us all with a plan today, I'm going to break this down over the next months or whatever as I can get this information to you, what each of these sort of steps will look like. But every time you go into a hive, you're not ever just doing one thing. So this is looking at what your pest management framework might be. They're just other steps in here. So this is a chemical step, but there might be another step of making sure all of your equipment is always cleaned each time, so you're not spreading mites from one hive to another. That's a simple thing, but that's part of your management program. Another thing, so we spoke about the first 18 months with the feral hive dying out, the mite bombs overtaken and then moving into managed hives. Other options including that brood break, if there was a way to do that. They had some examples at the conference of cages where you just keep 2 or 3 brood frames and the queen in there, so the brood can't get out, but the mites can get out of there. So there's weighing up different ways of doing that. They also have drone frames, which we have ordered as a club. Now the reason that drone frames could be part of your pest management program is because the mites tend to be drawn to drone brood. So a lot of beekeepers are putting these in their hives, trying to draw as many mites into it. When they've got that all capped of drone brood, popping that in the freezer and then killing off that frame of drone brood and hopefully a whole bunch of mites. So another possible step you can include in your management. And then there was another crazy thing there that they had this big tub, like it looked like a big old esky that would be at a barbecue, but it's a $7,500 esky that was lined with metal. And you're supposed to put your brood frames into it. It heats up to 51 degrees, which keeps the brood alive but kills the mite, and then you put them back into your hive. So we're not buying one. I'm just letting you know it's out there. So there are different things being trialled around the world, and that's one of the things that I saw out there. Here's an example of a queen isolation cage. So she stays in your hive, but you can have wait till all your brood is open, then treat your hive with your chosen chemical or method. So when all the brood is open, this could give you a brood break as well. Another option there. So how we are going to manage it is the oxalic acid. There's another photo that might be a little clearer of the cardboard over there. It's affordable. It's industry endorsed yet not approved. Can be harsh on bees. So pros and cons. Grant pops some in his hives because he thinks he's in an area where he's going to get hit soon, and his dream is to catch them as they come into the hive. So he's already put them in there, and he's going to see how it affects one of his hives. That's not everyone's recommended way of doing it, but again, 12 beekeepers, 13 opinions. This is the synthetic version that we are going to be looking to as a club purchasing. So I spoke to you about this. A treatment of this might be $2 or $3. The Baverol comes in a pack where we can split them up. There might be 4 treatments per box, and we can split them up, and they would become I think we can get them for about $12. So again, not a crazy expensive amount, but this will treat, it's a piece of plastic that sits over your frames, and that will treat the bees. It is affordable, available, industry endorsed, approved, but it will affect, if you are looking in the business of wax, it will add a chemical to your wax. So this one won't, that one will. And then our integrated pest management program. Always doing that, no matter what other treatments you do, you have your own management program, which we'll continue to talk about. And then also I think the one thing that I can't stress enough is having a community of people to share and bounce ideas on. What I did notice at the QVA, I met with big groups of people and then smaller clubs, just all sharing ideas of what does and doesn't work. We, I believe, are the biggest club in Queensland of community beekeepers. So the QBA has between 350 and 400 members. We have around 250 members in our club. Now, while they represent the majority of commercial beekeepers, so a lot bigger industry, we are, I think, are probably the biggest community club in Queensland, which is just so impressive. There are clubs around Queensland closing down who only have 8 members because people are trying to do it on their own. And I just don't think we can. And I think having something like this, for someone like me who only has a few hives, I don't want to have to try and work it all out on my own. I want to be able to come and see what works for you, what does and doesn't work. And I feel like that's the value in having a club like this. And I've had 2 other clubs contact me since QBA to find out what we're doing that works so well. So they're trying to model what we're doing. And I keep saying what we do so well is have a community of people who do care. We have a vision of this is what we want as a community and this is what we keep fostering as a community. So that's how I think we're going to manage it. Yep.
So you mentioned that one of the treatments will affect the wax. What about the honey?
No, it seems to be fine. The honey's okay. I guess the same with foul brood. So
You can't use Varroa with honey. It's in the product information booklet.
no, yeah, you can't. It's in the brood box there. And reminding you of the threshold, no more than 5 mites per treatment time. Any questions? No questions? Great. Great job, Kate. Yay. Good job. You did a great job. Yes.
As a club, you mentioned community. I just want to understand whether we're doing it. If not, why don't we implement it as a club? Like with fire ants,
Yeah.
you can't move soil from that suburb to that suburb.
Yeah.
At this club, I've purchased a nuke. We sell bees amongst each other.
Yeah.
If we're not, I think as a minimum, everyone who has hives in this club needs to check for Varroa Mite and list it with us, Lynn. And every month we should have all of the hives registered and everyone's tested. And it's not a name pointing, no names need to be on it. But if we've got 500 hives
Yeah.
and we only show 200 have been tested, well,
Yeah.
we're failing at the beginning.
Yeah.
And if we're selling bees,
Yeah.
we should not be able to sell them morally as a club to each other unless we know they've been checked in the last month.
That second point is I like your first one, but the second point's a really good one in that we've recently as a committee been talking about where we're selling hive or our club members who are selling to each other. We're just recommending that we won't promote that until we know that that has been checked and tested and that it's a safe hive and also a strong hive.
Well, that's what I'm saying. We should feel comfortable saying, listen,
Yeah.
has this been checked in the last month before I give you
Yeah.
money?
I agree.
Rather than getting
Yeah.
it, taking it to your property, then
Yeah.
checking and finding it's got mite. And it's
Yeah.
not to point fingers at
No, you've
members,
got to
but if
protect
we
yourself and each other.
if we're
Yeah.
promoting trying to be the
Yeah.
leaders as a community, I
Yeah.
think we should set a minimum as a club.
Yep, certainly something for our committee to have a chat about. Yeah, but I think that there was a lot of information at the QBA, but there was also a lot of hope that it would be okay and that we're just going to find a way to manage things. Any other questions? Yes.
Might be a bit ignorant to say, but how does the Varroa Mite get into the hive? Where does it come from?
Off other bees, it flies in.
It just it
John, how
flies
does it get in there?
Comes in with the bees.
Yes, so the bees are bringing it in.
It can't fly on its own.
No.
That's the problem with feral hives.
Yes.
Because when the feral hive dies, your domesticated bees will rob that
Yeah.
and the hives will jump on them and come in.
Yeah, and that's the bomb, the mite bomb. So. Yeah. It's like hair lice. Jump onto the bee. Go up.
Any efforts to eradicate all these feral hives?
Well, I mean, I guess the hard part is that every time a hive swarms, who's tracking that one? Or there's no real way that it is overwhelming.
Tanya said that between Noosa and the border, they've estimated 150 feral hives per square kilometre in the woodland.
Okay, that's not
Forget it. There's no chance.
When Tanya actually did her presentation some time back, there was a matter of laboratories being able to test for residue chemicals and all that. And it was the days when we were speaking about, you know, once the brood box has been tested and treated, that the super had to be taken away for a week.
Yeah.
You know, so from what you've said now, is that less of a concern?
No, it's just depending on which chemicals you use.
Yeah.
So the reason that we were speaking about using these two types was that there wasn't a period on there. So we've got some printouts of that sheet that I showed you before. I'm not sure how far back it was. We've got some printouts of that one.
Yeah.
So that shows you like the withholding period, how it can be treated. So that does go into detail there. So there isn't one for the two that we sort of looked at there.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm just trying to work it out too. But yeah.
No, that's right. So, is your presentation going to be available for us online?
Well, Ron has recorded it. So.
Oh, okay.
But this. Do you mean this PowerPoint?
Oh, look, the whole lot is just excellent.
Oh. Great.
Okay. Excellent.
Tony, can I just ask, at the moment with testing, we're good. We test on a weekend. If you find them, what do you do?
So if you go to the website that we often show up is 123Bs, where you report where they are. So that's reporting where the hive, where you're declaring where they were at that point. So that's. But you're suggesting that we also have a second.
I'm just saying, if you find them, reporting's one thing.
Yeah.
What do you do then? Do you burn your hive?
No. So that's what.
Bring Tom up and sell him to Tom.
And that was my question and my aim for going to QBA to find out what do we do once we find them. So we've got the 5. We're looking at using the Varroa and the oxalic acid, depending on how many you've got and which part of the cycle they're in.
Yeah.
So that's where we're trialling it, and hopefully at our next meeting we might be able to tell you what did work when Grant's trialled them and.
So in the interim, we find them tomorrow. We go and test again, and we find them.
Yeah.
What is?
You just report and wait to.
Well, yeah. I mean, hopefully you've got a week or two to work out a plan. Give us a call and then we'll work it out. But at the moment, I've contacted a couple of different groups about buying that Varroa in bulk, and I'm trying to work out. So John has shared with us how we can either sell them as a club, or if we can't sell them because they're a chemical, maybe you could just give us a $12 donation and we give you some. We'll try and work out what works best. We had made contact with the feed lot people down the road, that they might be able to do that as well, but I'm not sure if that's going to add more to the cost. If it's something we can do as a club, it seems to be that we can do it as a club. Varroa only has to be kept at under 30 degrees and out of direct sunlight, so it's not requiring anything. It's in sealed bags, it's all very safe. This is relatively safe as well. So I'm hoping that we'll find a way to deal with that.
Also, we're going to be training some of our guys,
Oh, yes.
The mentors. So once we're trained, which will be the 12th of July, 14th of July, you can ring me and we can send someone out to help you.
Yeah.
That's what we're aiming for.
So we're trying to have that first step of point of contact. Sorry. I don't know who was next.
Oh, that's all right.
Katie,
I was
can
just
I?
gonna
Yes,
Oh,
yes.
sorry.
I was just going to say, John might be able to say more. We went to that conference on the Gold Coast too, and I was in a slight state of thinking, oh my God, this is it's going to be here. But basically they said, yes, if you get the 5, you've got to treat it, but and monitor like you have been every month, but it's not going to explode in 2 weeks.
Yeah, that's right.
That's what reassured me. It's you know, it's not going to explode in 2 weeks, but that doesn't. And John might be able to say more, but yeah, it's not. We found it. Oh my God, we've got 5. We've got to do something tomorrow. No. We've got a little bit of time.
Yeah. There's a bit of space there for us to take a breath, and remembering that Lynn's working with Creating Mentors. We've got a biosecurity champion right here who has every month. John has stood here and given us information where I've tried to take most of it in, but I feel like some of my students who, when I'm teaching them, they're like, yeah, and then when it comes to assignment, they go, what? I feel like we're at assignment time where we're going, what? We're trying to remember everything we've been told. So John has all the information. Tanya's here a lot of the time. Lynn's creating mentors. I've just tried to present to you what I found out over those few days. So I think together we're going to be okay. And I think that we've got lots of steps in place, and it is reassuring to remember it won't explode overnight. It will be here and we will have to manage it. Yeah.
So just like we done the seminar as well, and
Yeah.
I think they're saying like until you actually reach that threshold of 5, if you've got 1 or 2, you don't have to panic.
Yeah.
It's until you get to the you don't actually have to treat until you get to the threshold of 5. So if you do find some, you don't have to go crazy and think I've got to treat straight away.
Yeah, because we've just had that fear driven into us, haven't we? Like it's coming, and it's just had like an Armageddon wave of stuff over the coast and kill everything. So it is just going to be a step for us.
On the treatment table, is any explanation given of the different colours?
Oh. I think it's to do with the main chemical that's used in each of them.
It's the class of chemical.
Sorry, John.
The colours represent mode of action.
Oh.
The two cream chemicals, they have different names.
Yeah.
They have the same mode of action.
Yeah.
Meaning you cannot, because you have to use a chemical of a different mode of action the second time, you can't use
good one.
a similar chemical.
Yes. Yeah. So we're talking.
Same with the yellow.
Yeah. So we're talking about rotating. You can't rotate between these two, is that right? But you can rotate between these two. Yes. Perfect. Thank you, John. Yep.
Was the talk at the conference about maybe this down the road could become mandatory, where people will actually have to report it rather than voluntarily report it?
Well, I guess even if they said that, you're supposed to also mandatory report American foul brood and mandatory register your hives. But we know that not everyone follows all of the rules. So I mean, even if they say it, I don't know that they're going to always get people to do the right thing, John.
We all have a biosecurity obligation.
Yes.
Even with one hive.
Yeah.
And in that obligation, you are required to notify.
Yeah.
I admit a lot of people won't, but it is an obligation under the Biosecurity Act.
Yeah. In fact, one of the opening sentences they said at the conference, John, was, "We are all stewards of biosecurity." I wrote it down. So we are all stewards of biosecurity.